What up, though, people? It is your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. And as you can see, I'm rocking out alone today. Look, we're gonna have Rob Beard on next week of the Detroit News. This week, he's celebrating his birthday somewhere a lot warmer than where we are right now, y'all. So everybody, definitely put the happy birthdays in the comments, in the chats to Rob Beard. Go on social medias. Definitely make sure you shout him out. And for Jeff Iafredi of the Morning Woodward Show, look, he's already done his content. We got some more that's on the way too. So be on the way, be on the lookout. We also got some content with Sean Murphy of From Half Court on the way as well. We just did something going over what to look forward to as it relates to the NBA trade deadline, Bojan Bogdanovic, and the Detroit Pistons. But listen, for this episode, this one, we're going to get into the process versus the restoration. I remember when Philly was going through their rebuild, which they dubbed and they branded the process. And I can tell y'all this, look, whenever a rebuild is getting a nickname, just strap in because it might be rocky and it might be for a long haul. But look, theirs was rebranded the process. How many people remember when they went through this? The process of getting to where they are right now, going through all of the different draft picks, going through all of the down years, going through all of the losing. I'm talking about like at the tail end of 2012. Going into that 2013 draft, all the way until they drafted Joel Embiid. And you can see now that even though they have him, some of those other players that they drafted along the way aren't here. But it took them some time, man, at least 5, 6, 7 years of prolonged losing before they found their guy. And then it's not like they've turned around and started winning right away after that. So look, I got something here. I wanted to make sure that we could go over this stuff in great detail. We're going to go over and compare what the Philadelphia 76ers did during those years. And shout out to the fifth quarter as well. Fifthquarter.com. They went and they detail all of the picks that of consequence that the Philadelphia 76ers made as it relates to the process that got them to where they are right now. And it's ironic because the Pistons just got whacked by them. I don't know what you could say. That 30-plus point loss, giving up almost 150 points, giving up 82 points in the second half, there's no excuses. There's nothing that you could really say. There's nothing you could really do. That's one where you burn the tape, you gouge your eyes out, and you just come back the next game, which is tonight, and play better. Bring the energy, bring the hustle, bring the heart, bring the effort. I don't care who's not out there. You gave up 82 points in the paint. And I get it. You're without Duran, you're without Stu, and I guess it's going to look like that. Embiid had a field day in his first game back, 36 points. And Philadelphia shot 60% overall. And right now they're sitting in a really, really, really good position, not just this season, but for years to come. So was the losing worth it? Was the process worth it? When they were going through that, a lot of Detroit Pistons fans out there said, you know what? We'll go through that. I especially when they started getting the guys in there, like I remember when they drafted, Embiid. I remember when they drafted Simmons. I remember when they drafted Fultz and things of that nature. People were like, yeah, man. I want that in my life. Now the Pistons are there, and it seems as if Piston fans aren't taking it too well. But let's get into this article, man. He said on the week where the NBA draft would have originally been held, we've seen many posts showing anniversaries of key players being drafted. For most of the 2010s, the draft for Sixers fans felt like the finals. Is that how it felt for y'all Pistons fans? Each year during the process, it led up to this momentous day with fans eager to see who Philly would pick in hopes of helping turn the team around. It was what we all craved. Looking back on the draft picks, there were some highs and lows, from busts to stars to everything in between. It's strange to think that only 2 of these lottery picks are still on the team today. Yo, that's crazy because the Pistons have had 4 lottery picks in the last 3 seasons alone. They had, out of all their lottery picks, which were like 6 or 7, only 2 are on the team. Troy Weaver has already accelerated this rebuild or this restoration as it relates to what the process was. It's like he learned from whatever he was going through in OKC, and he saw what Philly was doing as well because, that DNA has run through the Pistons, their organization, especially with Ed Stefanski and others who have come and gone that were attached to the Philadelphia 76ers restoration. But the article goes on, in honor of the NBA draft, I decided to rank all 7 lottery picks that the Sixers took in the process years or traded for. For example, Dario Saric is on the list instead of Elfrid Payton. even though they technically drafted Peyton and soon after traded for Sark. Now look at this, y'all, because we're gonna get into the Pistons draft picks a little bit later as well. But we got to break this down with what actually is going on. Were you all one of the ones that said, you know what, we're willing to go through a build this thing from the ground up, tear it down to the studs, redo everything, get all of the dead money off the books, and just start fresh with young players, and we'll deal with the losing until they're ready to win? Were you one of those people? Especially when Philly was going through what they were going through, and we were getting jealous of them being able to select what we thought was going to be, perennial all-stars every single year. Obviously, they wound up with Embiid, but man, it was a lot of losing to wind up with just that one player. But they've been able to celebrate a lot of winning seasons since then. We're going to get into this first pick here. Markelle Fultz. They ranked him in order of how good they've been. 2017 draft pick, first pick. Currently averaging 7.7 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 3.4 assists per game. Markelle Fultz, man, that was one of the wildest situations that I ever remember. And this is about trying to get these things right. This is about making sure that our GM has an eye for talent, no matter if these things are panning out or not, and if he can correct on those misses, or if he can get the best out of his makes. When you look at Markelle Fultz, man, that was one of the wildest things. It says, does this even need an explanation? We were duped, fooled, scammed, whatever you want to call it. Our biggest rival took Sacramento's first round pick from us, while they ended up with a talented player, and the Sixers got practically nothing. That was a huge blow to the process, because I believe that Philadelphia, if they would have gotten that pick right, they set themselves up for years to come to not just be a winning team, but a team that you seriously have to take, into consideration as a finals contender. Not just to make it, but to actually come away with the championship. That was a huge blow. I don't know what their talent evaluators were up to, or what was going on as it relates to knowing these players on the ground level, but somebody missed something major on Markelle Fultz, man. But let's move on. Jahlil Okafor. And I look, y'all, there's a couple familiar faces on this list. These are their process years. They wound up taking Jahlil Okafor, third pick, 2015 draft. He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad. With the Sixers, he had 14.6 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game. Not a bad pick at all. Most fans were disappointed, though, when the Sixers couldn't take D'Angelo Russell, but still thought we got a great consolation prize in Okafor. Nope. Yo, this process, these rankings are not off. They're not off to a good start, yo. They're not at all. Ja didn't necessarily play poorly with the Sixers, but certainly didn't live up to the expectation of being a cornerstone piece to change the team. It hurts even more than Porzingis. Than more thinking Porzingis went the very next pick. So this process, similar to the restoration or similar to the Pistons rebuild, has had some ups and downs. Has had some times when it just stings, man. You're gonna have some misses. You're gonna have some makes. The next one up, let's check this out here. Nerlens Noel, this one's a current Piston. So Jahlil was here. Nerlens is here currently. 2013 draft pick. We got to go way back. Sixth pick. 10.2 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game. And the stocks were way up, man. He was at over 3.3 stocks per game, 1.7 steals, 1.6 blocks with the Sixers. And stocks is steals plus blocks. Hey, listen, the start for the process and going winless for Wiggins, the trade shipping out Drew Holiday, which allowed Sam Hinkle to let fans in the league know that the Sixers were all in on tanking. Noel didn't stick around to see the team make the playoffs. I still love to have him. He got along great with the players. I thought we didn't get enough in his trade and still feel he'd make a nice athletic backup center for Embiid. Hey, Philly, listen. Call up Troy Weaver. Make the deal. I'm sure he got something already. They said that they're willing to get him anywhere that he's wanting to go, and Embiid wants to go to a contender. So let's make that happen. I'm all for that. But next up on this list, and y'all gonna see something here, this reoccurring theme of all of these process players, right? That's not even there, yo. Not even there. And this is why Troy Weaver is trying to accelerate things the way he is and why he's going about it the way he is. And we're gonna get to it. But next up, man, Michael Carter Williams, y'all. How many of you guys remember him, man? You know the tall point guards? Everybody wanted those builds on 2K. I remember that, yo. Those Michael Carter builds, those Sean Livingston builds. 2013 draft pick, 11th pick, man. And mind you guys, these teams, they were trying to lose, and they were coming away with the 6th pick, the 11th pick in years where they were trying to lose. Markelle Fultz, 16 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 6.7 assists, 1.7 steals per game. My favorite processor. This is still the best smile. I thought for sure he'd be the point guard of the future and revolutionize the position. Well, we know how that all turned out. This next one here, Dario Saric. Listen, man, he had some good run. 13.5 points per game. He was taking 12th pick in the 2014 draft. 6.5 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists. Remember when fans would always wonder if Saric would ever come over to play in the NBA? That feels like decades ago. Dog, I remember that time, like just thinking back on that era. Sark was like this great mythical creature, man, that everybody was like, yo, we can't wait to see him come over here and cook the way he was doing in his overseas leagues. And he came over and he proved at that time that international basketball was catching up, but it wasn't quite what it is today. But it says Sark not only brought megalodon awareness to Philly, but also connected to the blue collar city by playing the game right and giving his all every time he stepped on the court. He may not be here now, but he played a big role in helping the Sixers get over the hump and finally make the playoffs. So there are some key players that may be here right now with the Pistons that might not be here when they're winning. Players, coaches, front office personnel, but they're going to be those guys that play those important bridge gap roles. I think Jeremy Grant is one of those guys. Bringing him here helped to change and update the culture of the Pistons and stamp that this is a restoration and a rebuild that they're going to take serious. You know, the Pistons, it takes something to get something. So they had to give up that cap space. They had to give up some players that they like to be able to bring in Sadiq Bey, to be able to bring in Isaiah Stewart, to be able to bring in Jeremy Grant. And as much as we know that Troy Weaver liked Jeremy Grant, he had to give him up to be able to go out and get a shot at Jalen Duren, to get a shot at Alec Burks, who they could potentially flip at this trade deadline. I know everybody's so gung-ho about what we can get for Bojan Bogdanovic, but Alec Burks has been putting some good game on film for any GM out there in the league to desire. And he's going to cost less than Bojan Bogdanovic. Obviously, people are going to want Bogey first. Any contender that's trading for him, he's probably coming off the bench for them. Even if he gets a lot of minutes, those teams are generally set, especially at the wing. So that's just fattening things up. If they strike out on him, I'm sure Alec Burks is somebody that Troy Weaver is going to try and leverage to be able to get something a little bit sweeter out than other teams would. And we've seen this when they went and they got Trey Lyles. I remember the Kings and all the reports coming out stating that the only way the Pistons were going to get Marvin Bagley was going to be with Jeremy Grant or Sadiq Bey or somebody included. I remember the fans going crazy. Sean and I talked about this on our trade deadline piece the other day. And then when the report came out, it was first noted that the Pistons traded for Marvin Bagley, but we didn't know what the Pistons were sending out. When it came back, I think everybody around was like, is that it? Wait, we got to wait and see if Jeremy Grant or somebody else was going to be included, because it was just Josh Jackson and Trey Lyles, who Trey Lyles was just picked up off the scrap heap literally just months before. You know what I mean? So it was crazy. And he stepped in and showed what the Pistons were missing. A big who was just going to get straight line to the rim, playing the pick and roll game. And even though he didn't do great, he provided a lot more than they had up to that point, especially with Isaiah Stewart still learning the position. And honestly, at that point in time, we didn't see it. But when you look back at the trends, he was learning how to become that stretch four. But next on this list, man, is, you guys should know who you think. Ben Simmons. All right. The first overall pick, 2016 draft pick, 16.4 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 8 assists, and 1.7 steals. His defense was impeccable. His playmaking was just next level. But we all know how that turned out, man. Talk about a process, yo. It was nearly impossible to mess up this pick after having one of the worst regular seasons in NBA history, going 10-72. Guys, listen, they were horrible. Y'all think that our Pistons are doing bad. They never had a season where they went 10-72, y'all. Come on. Think about that. Just to put all this stuff in perspective, because we got to go back. We talking about we want to be able to aspire to be a team like Philly. This is what they were going through, man. They ended up the first pick where they took the consensus number one pick, a type of player that doesn't come around every year. Simmons gets critiqued often by haters, and he still needs improvement if he wants to become one of the best in the game. But he has a set of skills very few players have ever had. With his size, speed, playmaking, driving, defense, Simmons was a high draft pick that finally worked for the Sixers, but eventually they wound up having to trade him, and obviously we know that what that worked out and turned out to be. I don't know what that's going to be for them long term. I don't know if their championship window is still there. I don't know if the process have worked or not worked as it relates to what they wanted to get. If it was just about being a winning team, okay. I guess that's what that's what they've had in their recent 20, 30 years. Just be a winning team, not a contending team. But for these Pistons, they're trying to restore to contending team, to a team that has won championships, to a team that has run and ruled conferences, to a team that's gone out and beat and knocked off the better teams and the better players in the NBA on their way to becoming a championship team. But let's get on. Number one, Joel Embiid, 24.1 points per game, 11 half rebounds, 3.1 assists, 1.8 blocks. You talk about not messing up, not missing anything, man. The third pick of the 2014 draft. It's pretty scary thinking about how badly this pick could have ended up. We need to appreciate more how the Sixers got the steal of this draft. It was the third pick. Think about that, y'all. This whole purpose of tanking that previous season was to end up with Wiggins or worst case Parker. Fans were disappointed to end up with the third pick, and frustration grew after Embiid missed his first 2 seasons. So patience, anybody? So think about this. They picked their guy and didn't even know that it was their guy way back in 2014. They went and they wound up picking Simmons in 2016, Fultz in 2017, all these other picks. Think about it. It took him a few years before this man even was really able to get going. But some were wondering if he was ever going to play an NBA game. Fast forward to today, Embiid is now the face of the process, a superstar in the league and a fan favorite in Philly. And I hear people complaining about, Cade. I hear people complaining, about his injury history and whatnot. Guys, I'm telling you, if you're looking at this process, it's clear to see that the Pistons are far ahead at this time, 2-3 years into their rebuild, than the Philadelphia 76ers got in their whole entire rebuild. Obviously, it's yet to be seen if Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, or one of these young guys can become or have the level of impact that Joel Embiid has on this game. But they're getting pretty close, and I would reckon to believe that some of these picks are going to stick around. Now, this is one question I would ask you before we get into some of these draft picks. Is there anybody a part of this current restoration right now that you believe is not going to be here in the future? That's going to play, so like the Dario Saric role, kind of the Ben Simmons role. They may be flipped, whether they have been good for us or not, to be able to better bolster the rebuild and the restoration as we go forward. Because that's something that we see when we look at the process. They did a whole lot of losing, a whole lot of purposeful tanking, a whole lot of selling it to their fans. And that's why they branded it that way. Told people, strap up, strap in, get ready for this. Like the players that we're bringing in, don't like the players that we're bringing in, let us know. But this thing is going to get righted out eventually. And we look at what they are today, and a lot of fans are like, oh, that's what we want. Like, it's like revisionist history. They're doing that right now, but they're doing it at a much better pace. So look, let's get into it as it relates to these. I want to look at the eras. That's what I want to do. Before we got into the drafts, I wanted to take you guys through the Pistons era so you can see exactly what they were dealing with. And let me get the thing going at the bottom there. As y'all can see at the top, man, we're gonna start kind of just before the going to work Pistons, man. It's been some bleak years, y'all. Some years without playoffs, but that going to work Pistons squad, they really, really put in their work. They had a gluttony of coaches from Doug Collins, Elvin Gentry, to George Irvin, to Rick Carlisle, to Larry Brown, to Flip Saunders. All of those guys, I would say, with the exception of George Irvin, were plus coaches. Phenomenal coaches. And those you could say were our golden eras, our golden years. You can see in between that, though, there are some trash years in between the Bad Boys and the Chuck Daly era. I mean, in between the going to work era and the Chuck Daly era. Obviously, Chuck Daly, there's nobody who's touching him. 467 wins, 271 losses, 71 playoff wins, 42 losses, and obviously the back-to-back championships. He's the GOAT of GOAT Pistons coaches. As we move forward here, as we go through these eras, we're going to see where the Pistons absolutely fell off, man. Just fell off a wagon here. And it's been horrible ever since. Look at these eras, y'all. And look just how far back they were set. Michael Curry, John Custer. What do you guys remember? Just put down whatever you remember from these eras, y'all. John Custer, Lawrence Frank, Mo Cheeks. That didn't last long. John Lawyer. And then we got a glimmer of hope with the Stan Van Gundy eras. Listen, so our last two coaches, Dwayne Casey and SVG, they both made the playoffs. They got swept. So we're bookending. Sweeps. And then the last time we made it with Michael Curry in 2009 at the tail end of the going to work Pistons, another sweep. Man, I really wish that season they did not make the playoffs, but they really fought to try and do it for their pride. And look what it just kind of, it just set off a wave of trash from there. So you can see they have not had any success with any of their rebuilds. And Stan Van Gundy was supposed to be a win now type of rebuild. John Kuster era was supposed to be a rebuild. They were starting over. They were getting rid of the going to work era Pistons. You guys see how bleak it is. Now we fast forward to looking at these draft picks in terms of what they've gotten. I want you guys to tell me, just going through the drafts, of these Pistons, comparing what they've tried to do in the past to what they're doing now, which we call the restoration, versus what the Philadelphia 76ers has done during their process. I'm just going to give y'all a moment to take these in. And for the podcasters, I'm going to read off some of these names. Starting in 2000, starting in let's see here, man. 96, man. They took like Jerome Williams, Scott Pollard, and that's going way back. If we fast forward to the 2000s when they took Mateen Cleaves, Rodney White, Tayshaun Prince, Carlos Delfino, Darko Milicic, Jason Maxill, Aaron Aflalo. These are the first round picks, y'all. Rodney Stuckey, DJ White, Austin Day, Summer League Austin Day, man. I think his jersey's still in the Summer League rafters. Going ahead to 2010, Greg Monroe, Brandon Knight, Andre Drummond. I think Andre Drummond up to this point is the best pick since maybe Tayshaun Prince. Best first round pick since Tayshaun Prince, Andre Drummond. Then you get KCP, Stanley Johnson, Henry Ellison, Luke Kennard, Sekou Doumbouya. And then we get into the Troy Weaver era. And this is why I'm hopeful for what he's doing. This doesn't even include the trades he's done to bring in other players. This doesn't even include the second round picks that he's brought in that have contributed. They got to get healthy, but they've contributed when they've been in there. But Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey. When compared to that top 7 list that we heard from Philly, where do you put those Pistons players compared to that? I would take all 4 of those guys. All 4 of those guys would make this top 7 list over Markelle Fultz, Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, Michael Carter-Williams. I'm definitely putting Cade at least right now is going to be behind Ben Simmons on this list. If Philly process took Cade Cunningham, he would be 3rd. I would definitely put Jalen Duren right now above Jahlil Okafor. I definitely would. Markelle Fultz. Hey, are you taking Jaden Ivey over Markelle Fultz? And that's what I'm saying. When we're looking at the process and what Troy Weaver is doing, he said he's not going to allow anybody to speed this thing up. And this is kind of what influenced to start the season. When we looked at this team, when we looked at the roster, when we looked at the schedule, especially the brutal schedule to start the season, the Pistons have one of the hardest schedules in the season, especially to start. It read to me that this team was going to be 22 to 30 wins. If everything went right, 30 wins. Cade Cunningham playing right, maybe not getting an all-star nod, but playing to the level of an all-star. But the injuries to Cade Cunningham out for the year, Marvin Bagley injured several times, especially to start the season, which messed up their pick-and-roll offense, which Cade Cunningham, Killian Hayes, and Marvin Bagley, they really, really, really formed a good chemistry last year, and that's what helped them go 10-14 post-all-star break. This is what they were supposed to be building off of to come into this season. When you come into this season and you have one big man to start the season, and that big man is just Isaiah Stewart, and he's 6'8", you're going to have some troubles. But that doesn't mean that the restoration is all lost. That doesn't mean that the rebuild is all lost. And so I want you guys to tell me, I need you to tell me, are you still on the bandwagon of the Pistons rebuild? Are you still on the bandwagon of the restoration? Do you still believe in what Troy Weaver is doing? Going into next season, they're going to have the ability to overhaul this roster yet again. Mind you, they brought in, let's think about all of the players, whether they're still here or not. They were able to acquire Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kevin Knox, Kemba Walker, Bojan Bogdanovic. People, that's 7 players. Some of those players are our top contributors right now. Right now. We already went, Bojan Bogdanovic, since Cade Cunningham's been out, it's been our best player. Jalen Duren, arguably been our 2nd or 3rd best player in that stretch since he's been starting. Jaden Ivey, these guys are starting right now. These are the guys he just acquired. What is he going to do this offseason with another high draft pick, with the ability to go and flip one of these assets for another high draft pick if he desires, and the cap space to be able to absorb? So if players are looking to be dumped, like Utah was looking to dump Bojan Bogdanovic, well, Troy Weaver had the ability to go out there and say, hey, we'll be takers. We'll be takers. Denver could not realistically afford to pay Jeremy Grant. Hey, Detroit Pistons said, we'll be takers. Yeah, we'll do that. So what happens this offseason? The Knicks, they were just looking to dump players. That's how we wound up with Jalen Duren. The cost to dump all your trash, as they were calling it, in terms of their contracts on us, we got Jalen Duren. 3 years in a row, Troy Weaver has shown I'm gonna go out there and get lottery picks. I'm gonna go out there and get top talent. I'm gonna go out there and really lose no trades. Even if some of them haven't panned out the ways that we had hoped, or the ways that we thought, or the ways that they look like they should have, he's still not losing these deals. These draft picks aren't losses. Like, guys, previous regimes have literally passed up on Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker. Guys, think about that. Our talent in the past would miss on guys. Our talent today is saying, you know what, in the 20s and the 21s and the 19s, we got to get a Sadiq Bey. We got to get that Isaiah Stewart. No, 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 no. We got to get Jalen Duren. Even though he's sliding down the draft and now he's at 13, we got to get him. Get Jalen Duren right now. We would have taken him at 5. And everyone's saying, what? Jalen Duren? Nah. But now everybody's sitting here saying, oh, Jalen Duren's the future. Jalen Duren's the best. Wait. That's part of the restoration, though. We can't separate those two. And I keep telling you, I'm going to continue to tell you all this. The restoration and the rebuild did not start until they drafted Cade Cunningham, got Jeremy Grant, got rid of Blake Griffin. That's when the rebuild started. Before that, as you guys can see, when we went through the coaches, and that's why we got to tell the story. When we went through the coaches, you go back and you look at Dwayne Casey. He got a playoff 0-4 right there in his time here. A lot of losses, but he got that playoff appearance. Why? Because he was brought in to win now. In the second year when they lost, it was the year that they were starting to tear everything down. And in the third year is when it was like, you know what? This is what we are. The restoration is on and popping. The rebuild is on and popping. Get used to it. Get used to it. So like I said, y'all, the process versus the restoration. I want to ask you guys up to this point, which one do you think was better? When you were going through the process, up to 3 years, 2, 3, 4, it looked kind of bleak. Think about it. In year 3 is when they drafted of their process, when they drafted Joel Embiid, and he was sitting out for 2 years. The restoration right now, we got players that we know are going to make first team all rookies. We got guys that we know are going to be contributors for a long time. Jalen Duren is already one of the best rebounders in the NBA, not just as a rookie, in the entire NBA. He's one of the best rebounders. And as he continues to get better, using his body, understanding that you're the biggest guy out there, the most athletic guy out there. You're faster than other people, and you're faster than a lot of us even thought coming in. And this is what Casey told us. Sean Kemp was the comp, bro. As he continues to understand that, look out for Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. Don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on him. 15, 4-4. He's been holding that steady all season throughout all the ups and all the downs. In the shooting numbers, plus 30%. His assist numbers, plus 4 assists per game. These were some of the questions that we had about Jaden Ivey coming into the season. These are reasons why you should be hopeful for this restoration, because going into this draft, they're only going to get a player that's going to contribute. And you know that. They're going to contribute and they're going to do well as anybody else that they may trade for or sign. Over $55 million of usable cap space. It could be 60 depending on what they choose, over 60 depending on what they choose to do with some of the players that they got in-house. And depending on if they choose to go up over the cap and when they decide to sign players and whatnot. But listen, I like this. It was interesting when I went through the process and we just looked at what they were going through and what fans might have been going through during that time. Because y'all, I don't think that we would have been too, with what I know about Pistons fans, nah, man. Y'all, we wouldn't have made it through the process at all. This is tremendously already at a better pace, even though we know Joel Embiid, the wins, longevity in the playoffs and things of that nature. Guys, what would you have done if we would have drafted Cade Cunningham and he literally was out for 2 seasons and never played, or Jalen Duren, or one of these guys that we were depending on? I don't know. But look, I think that's enough for today. We went over it, the process versus the restoration. Do you still believe in a rebuild? I want to know your thoughts on it, your take. I also want to know, where do you believe Troy Weaver should take this thing? Is it something that you believe Troy Weaver is everything is starting to kind of mellow? Where he started off hot and fiery, now everything is starting to mellow and his moves aren't really panning out the way that you thought? Or do you believe, hey, you see what I got on, right? Transformer Troy, right? Let's get on. Do you believe that what he's doing right now is going to start to pay dividends over the next 1 or 2 years? Many people said that this was a 5-year restoration, a 5-year rebuild. Many people believe that this is what it's going to take to be able to turn over some talent, turn over this roster, and get some new guys in here to be able to really, really, really create a foundation that you could spring forward on. All right, look, I'm going to get that drum roll going for the legend, because he will be back, and for his birthday. So again, you guys, make sure you do the happy birthday salute in the comments, in the chats. Make sure you guys say what up to Rob Beard, man. He's done a lot for this platform. He's done a lot for a lot of people in this industry, and he's done a lot for just people in general. So for Jeff Freddy, Mr. Everything of the Morning Woodward Show and Woodward Pistons, my name is Brandon Dent, Detroit Kool-Aid. And hey, yo, shout out to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. Till next time, y'all.